anything worth having in life is going to come at some type of cost. That's just all there is to it. Why do you think that they're called the one percenters? Because 99% of people aren't going to do what it takes to live an extraordinary life. And so you've got to be able to commit and say, I know that I'm going to have to be able to be different to do this, but I'm okay with some delayed gratification. I've interviewed hundreds of millionaires, and one of the same themes that I hear over and over and over in every interview I do is delayed gratification. If you plan on doing anything worth having anything worth having in life, doing anything extravagant, you're going to have to delay gratification.
Jaren, thank you for joining me for our Thought Leader Spotlight series. I'm your host over here, Matt Camp, head of partnerships at DealMachine. And on these, we really like to shine a spotlight on industry experts like yourself, hear your inspiring stories and really educate our audience on how you see the real estate world evolving. So today, really excited to welcome on Jaren Sustar. You guys might know him as the Finance Cowboy. You put out awesome content on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all over the place. You've got a podcast, the Finance Cowboy Show. You've done over $5 million in real estate deals the past 5 years, and you scaled to 30 plus properties with other people's money. Did that with your wife and became millionaires before the age of 30, and all while working a full-time job with 4 kids. So love what you've built, man. Excited to have you on. Welcome on.
Dude, thanks for having me. I think you know more about me than I do. That's a pretty intense rundown right there. I love it.
You've done a lot, man. Yeah, there we go. I'm excited to have you on. I think I love to start there, like just more about your personal journey. Like, can you tell us more about how you got into real estate? I know a lot of people watching this, they might be trying to do their first deal or first couple and make that transition too.
I try to let everybody know that the everyday average working person can do it by sharing my story. So I tell folks, if I can get into this real estate game, I promise you that anybody can. So grew up, my dad's a pastor. His church is about a mile down the road from where I'm sitting. So if that tells you anything, didn't grow up with a bunch of money. Investing wasn't something we talked about a lot. I wasn't inundated with it. I didn't come out with the silver spoon, have grown up in this environment of real estate's normal. And so for me, I did the traditional, hey, let's go to college. I went and played baseball in college, graduated with like $65,000 in student loans. Then I had to buy me a jacked up truck because I live in South Carolina. And then I had to buy my wife a wedding ring. And then we had to run up credit cards. So we're like 23 years old, had just got married, and we're over $100,000 in debt. So the classic story, we're behind the 8 ball. And I don't remember exactly when it happened, but I just know at some point I was kind of like, I don't want to be status quo. Like, I don't want to necessarily live like everybody else around me is living. And so if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to be a little bit different. And so my wife and I went on this rampage for 5 years from 2013 to 2018 of just paying off bad debt. And so everybody looks at my story now. It's like, oh, he's done 5 million in real estate. He's worth all these millions, all this. And it's like, yeah, for 5 years, I was in the trenches grinding, like just no fun at all. So we get through that period of our life. And so we kind of got out of the bad part. And now it's like, okay, we're not in debt anymore. Now we have this disposable income. What are we going to do? And it's very hard to part with your money. Everybody knows this. You work hard for your money, then to let it go, to not just hold on to it and save it is very, very tough. But I was smart enough and just maybe dumb enough to think like, hey, I need to go put this into something that is going to go up in value over time. What's done that the longest? Well, if you look since the beginning of time, real estate has made people wealthy. And so I had a buddy of mine who had actually gotten into real estate right when we got out of college. So all those years that I'm paying off debt, he's buying property. And so by the time we're 27, he's a multimillionaire. And so what that did for me was kind of be able to look at him, and it took this theory, this legend of real estate, this mythical thing that so many people have done, but it seems like it's so far and hard to reach. I was able to look at him, and it made it real. And I was like, bro, if that ugly dude can do it, I can figure it out. And so we bought our first property. He actually helped me in 2018. We were 27 years old, and we bought 2 that first year. And then the next year in 2019, we bought 19 additional properties, and we were up to 21 properties in less than, I don't know, a year and a half. And we never stopped from there. And it has completely changed our lives.
Wow. That's awesome, man. Yeah. I love hearing how approachable that story is, like how relatable that is to come in and we've got plenty of people on here who are facing that right now. They might be looking at debt or, might be trying to, maybe they got through that journey and are saying like, hey, how do I get in? How do I approach this thing, this real estate thing that seems intimidating? How do I actually get into that? Like that? What is that first step? So what was kind of the flip of the switch for you there? Like what were kind of those first steps you took to get over that hump of saying like, hey, yeah, I'm bought in on real estate. Now what? Like, can you kind of give us that playbook?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was putting myself around a group of people who were already where I was wanting to go. And it sounds so cliche, but that was the first step for me is really seeing people that I knew who were doing it so that I felt more comfortable to go doing it. And then once that was done, it was starting to learn the basics. So we take people on our W2 millionaire method on a journey of following these certain steps that help you to close deals and be able to scale. And so for me, it was understanding, okay, what markets do we want to buy in? All right, once we figured our market out, what locations in those markets do we want to buy in? Okay, we figured that out. Well, how do I get leads coming in? Because as you guys at DealMachine know, if you don't have leads, you don't have a real estate business, or even if you're not running a real estate business and you're doing it to build financial freedom on the side of your W-2 and raising your family like I was doing, you're not going to buy property. So now we've got to generate leads. And then okay, I've got leads coming in. I got to know if it's a good deal or not. So now I got to figure out how to analyze it. Great. Well, I found a good deal. How am I going to pay for it? And so then learning how to fund and getting creative. And so just really walking through that process and then, going how to make the offer, how to manage rehab, going through those things. But back to your original question, I think the biggest thing was seeing other people do it, being around other people who were doing it, and then just following those steps to go and get it done. Because it can be scary. I mean, I still remember the emotion from my first deal. I wanted to back out. I was so scared, but it's kind of like riding a roller coaster. Like you're scared to get on, then you do it. And you're like, dude, get me back on that thing. I'm ready to rock. Let's do it again.
Love that. Yeah. So, that's one thing you mentioned, like, hey, if you've got that W-2, you've got that day job. Is that something? I know we have a lot of people who kind of make that transition and are kind of thinking about like, hey, oh man, should I stay at this job or when should I make the jump? Like, are there ways to leverage your W-2 into, starting to get active in real estate? Like, can you tell us about that journey and that transition and how to think through that process?
There is no better time to get into real estate than when you're already working another job. I think you should leverage the crap out of your W-2 to buy real estate. You're loanable, number one. Banks and private lenders and all the lenders, they like lending to you because you have steady income coming in. Then number two, you have steady income coming in. So you're able to continue to live off that steady income while you're kind of figuring this thing out over here on the side. And it works as a safety net to allow you to be able to go and know that, okay, I'm not necessarily going to crash my entire life on this because I'm not betting all my chips on this. I still have this stability here, but I'm going to go and I know that I have to do something more if I want to get ahead in life, if I want that financial freedom to leave the legacy for my kids, to be able to choose what my days look like. Something, you have to invest in something. Real estate, stocks, business, something, or you're not going to get there. And so, being able to leverage that job that you already have, that income that you already have is huge. And then it goes to your personal decision on when you want to quit. To this day, I still work a W-2 job because I absolutely love it. But there's a lot of people who don't absolutely love their job. And so they want to scale to be able to leave. But that's great. The key is let's get ourselves to the point to where we can decide. That's where the power is. It's not in necessarily the action. The power is being able to wake up and be like, all right, I want to do this or I don't want to do this. Yeah. And that's when you've really reached freedom.
Yeah, the flexibility of that is awesome. And I mean, you see studies, even just like, even the jobs that are virtual, like going to the office versus work from home, the people who have a choice to do either are the ones that, consistently are happier because they've got that flexibility. So, I think, well, I love you walking through the process for us of like, okay, now once I decided to go all in, here's what, here's each thing I learned. Deal analysis is something that I think can be, again, intimidating for people. And, can be like, hey, am I buying right? Like, how do I think through analyzing what to make an offer on? On the DealMachine front, we love helping people get to that conversation with sellers and go through and generate the leads. But that next step is acquiring the property, like actually making an offer, right? So I know you've got some tools like that help with deal analysis. You've got your group that helps with that. Can you kind of walk through your process for how to come to that ARV, how to estimate rehab costs? Like, give us a small crash course. Obviously, that could be a whole nother full deep dive, but a few nuggets would be great.
Yeah, definitely. I'll hook you up with some nuggets. I could teach on this forever. We teach on it, analyzewithjaren.com. We teach on it super in depth, but I look at I'm always trying to buy, like, our method is we want to buy undervalued, distressed properties, whether the property's really distressed or the seller's really distressed. And so I'm really looking for a certain price point, or at least a certain starting point the majority of the time. And the formula that we use is ARV times 70%. So we go find the after repair value. So like in a residential home, if you're looking at a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot, ugly home, we're going to go look in a 2, 5, 10-mile radius of homes that have sold in the last 6 months that are 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot home that have been renovated. Then we're going to figure out what the price per square foot is that it sold. Okay. And that's going to tell you what the after repair value roughly is going to be of all the homes in that area that are comparable. So we go and we find that ARV, multiply it by 70%. Then we subtract our rehab cost, and that tells me what I need to purchase the property at. And that's a huge starting point for us. So I tell folks that's not gospel. I don't buy it exactly on that purchase price number every time. Sometimes I buy it more than I should. A lot of times I buy it less than I should. But that gives us a really, really good starting point to then go in and say, okay, what do we want to do with this property? Are we wanting to flip it, or are we wanting to rent it? Okay. And then we got to look and say, all right, if we're going to keep it as a rental, how much money needs to go into this from a rehab perspective? And then what's it going to refinance for on the back end? Because the ARV is going to be this. That means the bank's going to give me a certain amount. Well, then once I know what that refinance amount is going to be from the bank, then I got to go and I got to analyze and say, okay, are the rents in this area going to be enough to pay back the mortgage plus all my expenses once I've refied? And there's just a whole process that you go through. Same thing with the flip analysis, because a lot of people think, for example, cash flow on the rental front is rents minus mortgage. Well, that's not quite true. We got rents minus mortgage, minus vacancy, property management, maintenance, CapEx, all this good stuff. Same with profits on a flip. It's not just how much you have in minus, the amount you owe. You got your holding costs, you got your utility costs. And so I think what makes investors great is the ones who do not budge on those analysis. So many people play these what if utopian scenarios. Oh, if this just happens, then I can make this. And they're always analyzing for best case scenario. I think the good ones analyze for worst case scenario, still can make good profits. And then it's just icing on the cake when it gets better.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely like going in with that conservative estimate. I definitely agree with that. I mean, do you think, I know you mentioned that you guys look at, was it 2 to 5 miles out? Like, do you have any recommendations on like radius when you're looking at comps of like what's, too far, or too, what are you kind of looking for there?
Yeah, I would say, 2 to 5 miles is probably pretty standard. I think the biggest thing is just knowing the compatibility of the neighborhoods too, in those particular areas. If a neighborhood here is in one condition and then a neighborhood across the street is like a war zone and they're not comparable, then proximity doesn't necessarily matter as much. So you gotta dig in a little bit more than just proximity, and we got to figure out, what are the actual, the like, how is this neighborhood structured compared to the other neighborhoods? So there's a couple different things that go into it, but yeah, I wouldn't get too much farther out than probably 5 miles.
Yeah, love it, man. I hear about your background. It's pretty amazing to hear you. And we're always trying to figure this out. We're all busy people, but to hear that you're like, you've got the W-2, you've got, you're a dad, you're a husband, you're putting out great content, but also you're, living it, in the real estate space. Like, do you have any tips on how you manage to pull that off? Like in terms of just managing a full life and doing that, effectively across a lot of different areas. And again, I know everyone's, like you said, I'm sure in the back, it can be a little more chaotic, but that's something that I know a lot of our people are always trying to figure out, like, how do you effectively do all these things at once, right?
That's $1 million question. So I think number one is, how bad do you want it? Anything worth having in life is going to come at some type of cost. That's just all there is to it. Why do you think that they're called the 1%ers? Because 99% of people aren't going to do what it takes to live an extraordinary life. And so you've got to be able to commit and say, I know that I'm going to have to be able to be different to do this, but I'm okay with some delayed gratification. I've interviewed hundreds of millionaires, and one of the same themes that I hear over and over and over in every interview I do, and you're getting in this interview, is delayed gratification. If you plan on doing anything worth having anything worth having in life, doing anything extravagant, you're going to have to delayed gratification. And so I think setting that mindset was huge for me from a mindset standpoint. Then number two, from an actual practical standpoint, is having the right team members on your team. You hear all these horror stories about, being a landlord and dealing with tenants and having properties is such a nightmare. Guys, I am 100% serious when I say this. On average, my existing portfolio, I spend less than 15 minutes per week. 100, you guys can come to my house, go through my emails, texts, calls, and fact check that. I don't deal with anything after I find the deal and close on it. I'm a deal junkie. I want to find the deal and I want to create it and structure it. And then after that, I'm going to hand it off to a project manager who's going to handle all the rehab. Then after that, the property manager is going to get it rented out, or either my agent is going to list it and sell it. And I don't hear from a property manager unless there's a repair over $500 or a lease is up for renewal. So I don't hear from them hardly ever. And then my agent pretty much calls me once the deal's closed. And so I think really understanding what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and then spending your time doing that. So I can spend 3 to 5 hours a week tops finding deals and then structure them, get them closed, and then I'm done. And so just from a real estate standpoint, I think it's important to understand you don't have to do everything. And that's one of the things we teach people a lot is like, what are you good at? How much time do you have? What do you want to do? Let's focus on that. And then let's put professionals, people who are going to do it better than you anyways, around you. And then when you look at the other businesses like Finance Cowboy, it's really just being able to structure the schedule. I got certain days that I shoot the content. So that's only 1 day per week or 1 day per month. Right. And then we got days where we're coaching and days where we have certain meetings. And then I set other times for the W-2. And so really being disciplined and having control of your calendar, but you will be surprised at how much more you're capable of without sacrificing everything else. I don't miss a kid's sports game. I don't miss a practice. I don't end the day without being outside with my boys for at least 2 hours working on sports or swimming. And so you really can do it without having to sacrifice the things you love. And it's pretty cool once you take the jump and start doing it.
No kidding, man. Yeah, I love the way that you prioritize things too. I mean, it says a lot about you. So it's fantastic to hear how you kind of think through that and really, like you said, I mean, you have to put in the work and think long term. Set these long term goals, but it's possible if you're prioritizing that way. Do you think? I know you talked about like your D1 baseball background too. Like, do you think? Anything from those days that really kind of like set you up for success in real estate? Like, I'd love to know if that's, people, because we do have a lot of people who are athletes or have that background too on here.
Yeah, athletes are just built different. Okay, I'm biased. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I love athletics, man. It totally changed my life. Yeah, I think it helps tremendously, depending on the person. There's a lot of people who play Division I athlete or sports athletics, and they're terrible people and have no drive. But for the majority of us, you just get discipline pounded into you at such a young age. I mean, I was up before school, starting at 15, working out. Go to school. As soon as school's over, I'm either at practice or I'm at the batting cage. And it was just this routine day after day after day. And then the sport, getting into college, it just amps up. It's on steroids. It's early morning weights, class all day, lunch, practice 1 to 4, dinner, study hall, and then you're just doing it over and over and over again. And so you really start to learn that input can dictate output. And just doing the same thing once you figure out a good system over and over and over leads to the outcomes that you want. And for me, my entire dream in life was to play Division I baseball. And so I did what I thought I needed to do it. And then I did it. And so what it did for me is it kind of told me, dude, I can almost do like anything I want in life, even though that's not true. It's not true. I can't do anything, but it let me know, wow, I really wanted to do this and I did it. And then a second thing, just from a baseball perspective, is if you know anything about the sport, if you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're really good. So that means 7 out of 10, you're failing. And so I've spent my entire life, like really high level baseball from call it 9 years of age to 20 years of age, just failing every single day of my life. 0 for 4 with 4 Ks, 0 for 3 with a walk. It's just like you just fail nonstop. And so eventually you either crumble, you stop playing, or you get numb to it. And you're like, dude, failure is just a lesson for tomorrow. And that's the way I look at it. And I really hardly ever get down in the dumps on anything.
Yeah.
Dude, I can lose like 50 grand on a deal. I'm like, Oh, dang. Well, won't do that again. And I'll just keep moving, bebopping. It's crazy. My wife's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I don't
Well,
know.
getting those, I mean, dude, yeah, being able to get over failure like that. It's, I mean, same thing with, on our front is we're teaching people how to go out there and reach out to people, and you're going to get a lot of no's. And so being able to
Yep.
train yourself and get used to those no's and be okay with that and continue to keep going. Like that's huge. And then I think, like you said, once you accomplish something like your dream of getting to baseball, a lot of people have that kind of aha moment the first deal they do as well. Like once you get over that hump, it's like, man, this is possible. Like what can I do next? What can I set my sights higher to do? So I could see it is cool to see how a sport set you up for business success as well. But
Yes.
one last thing I was going to mention, I know you talk pretty often around like your thoughts on getting into real estate, and is this a good time to do that, and kind of your thoughts overall in the industry. Like that's something. Just one last question for you. Like, is this we hear that over and over again. Like, is now a good time to get into real estate? Like, how do you approach that answer? Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts for people who are thinking about getting into this seriously.
Yeah, what I tell folks to do is just go look at a graph of real estate over the last 20 years. Is real estate today cheaper than it's going to be 20 years from now? And if so, should you buy it? And the answer is almost 100% of the time, yes. Any old head that you've talked to who's been doing this for a long time says their number one regret is not buying more, or their other is anything they've ever sold. They're mad at themselves for selling because it's usually 5-10x more expensive today than when they sold and already made a profit. And so what I would tell you is buy good today so that asset can be great tomorrow, and that tomorrow being 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So we don't want to buy reckless ever. We don't want to overbuy. It's where people get screwed. They over leverage themselves and they buy too expensive. And we don't do that. I teach people to buy undervalued. So we're creating equity instantly. We've got cash flow instantly. So we've got a good deal today. And then based on data, based on history, rents are going to go up over time. Property values are going to go up over time. Tenants are paying down our rent. We're getting tax benefits. We can force appreciate it through rehab. And it's just the greatest financial concoction on demand. So I tell you guys, stop trying to time the market. Every year that I've been doing real estate, they've said it's a bad year to buy. 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. It's a bad time to buy every single year. I've been told that. Stop trying to time it and just understand that it's more about time in the market. Mm-hmm. And when you start doing that, that's when, the life that you want will eventually just appear.
Love that, man. Yeah. Well, Regan, thank you so much for coming on. Like, this has been awesome. How can people get involved with you as well? Like, how can people get in touch with you and love, if you let them know everything you're working on there, that'd be great.
For sure. So we're very active on all socials, at Finance Cowboy. Check out the website at financecowboy.com. And then you mentioned the course, if you want help analyzing, analyzewithjaren.com. And then we also, coach people really in depth. Go to investwithjaren.com and check that out there. But Matt, I really appreciate you guys helping me or having me on today. I love what you're doing. Love partnering with y'all, and
Thanks,
you have a great product.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, and I was going to say, I know I'm getting involved with the coaching community as well. Yep. With your students there, so excited to get involved there too. But we'll link to all that below here. We've got a few other free resources in the links we'll do there. But Jared, really, really appreciate the conversation, man. It's been great. So
awesome. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Everyone watching is Matt Camp with DealMachine, and happy deal finding.